So we'll start with you, Shellie, and then we'll go to Kerri.
My name is Shellie Willis. I served in the United States Army. I joined way long ago. It was 1988. I served 25 years in the Army, and I was a quartermaster first. Worked in the quartermaster corps, and then I changed my MOS to finance. So I am a senior financial manager with a specialty in acquisitions and controllership.
Very good. So what rank did you retire as?
Master Sergeant E8.
Good for you. That's awesome.
So hi, I'm Kerri Jeter, and I served in the U.S. Army as well. I went from E3 to O3 in my 12-year career. I had one deployment, which was 18 months from startup to the time I got back home from 2012 to 13. I started out as an HR adjutant, human resources specialist, and leveled up to I branched finance, actually, which was, I've been chasing Shellie for my career. I was always a little bit behind her at duty stations and places like that. But, and then I also became a qualified public affairs officer, and then ended my career as a instructor, a tactical instructor for Officer Candidate School for the Washington Army National Guard.
Well, that's excellent. So were you in some kind of, in your either high school or your college years, were you in some kind of accelerated program or ROTC where you entered the Army as an E3?
I became a mom really young. I was a 16-year-old mother, and I was very good at school. So I just had that hiccup, I guess, in life. And I did some college because I wanted to better my position for my children. By the time I joined the Army, I already had 3 kids, and I had, I guess, 60 or 70 hours of college already that I was paying for as I went along. And so I was able to join because I had some college credits. I was 22 when I joined.
Oh, very good. Very good. So the next logical question for me is, what made you decide to go from enlisted to OCS?
The challenge of it, I think, and then the ability to lead. I've always kind of been just a natural leader from the time I was really young. Any sports I played, I always ended up being team captain or president of my class, or on and on and on. So it's just kind of a natural leader people looked up to and wanted to come to for advice. And so I had the opportunity to do that because the adjutant position in the unit I was in was a constant revolving door for the pilots. So they would come in, I was in an aviation unit, they would come in to S1, get their foot in the door, then they would go get their flight line position, and then that job would be open again. And so my command team came to me and asked if it was something I was interested in, and then that would be my job when I got through OCS. Great idea, not how the plan actually came to fruition, but I still took the opportunity and I went to accelerated OCS down at Alabama Military Academy, which is actually the home of the WAC at Fort McClellan, Alabama. A really tough 60-day class, but I was really inspired to keep going. I felt like I was literally riding on the backs of these amazing women who had come before me to keep me motivated. If they could do it, I could do it. And it was a really great experience.
Great. Thanks for answering that. And just to let you know, I served in the Women's Army Corps from 1968 to 71, and things were certainly different when I was in, because, you know, it's great to see the changes in the military. It's also great to see that all the combat arms have been opened up to women, because now the women in the military are doing things that when I was in, we only dreamed about. We had no idea that women would be able to go to the military academies, to the service academies, West Point, Annapolis, all of that. I mean, that was a huge game changer. So in my day, as an example, if you had children, if you became pregnant, you were not allowed to serve. You were medically discharged. If you were married, you were medically, you had to choose marriage or your military career. This was in the late 60s, early 70s. So to see the progress just since that time of women that the military realizes, I think somewhere they had the aha moment that they were letting too many of the best and the brightest out on, oh, they got married, well, it's time for them to leave. Well, if the men can be married, why can't the women be married? So anyway, the military has come to their senses, and it's one of the few places in our society where women are paid equally what the men are paid according to their skill set. So would you like to answer to that? Not
Shellie
really
has
a
a great
question,
response.
but just a comment.
Yeah, she probably has a great response to the pay gap, but I wanted to say, I think they finally realized, like, maybe they thought women couldn't serve two masters, you know, that whole thing, it's money or God, like, you couldn't serve your husband and serve in the military, like, we had to decide, like, we weren't capable of doing such a thing, so I'm saying that kind of facetiously, but I am glad that, you know, we've come a long way. I think we still have a lot of culture change and shift to do within the military as a whole, but women are a combat multiplier. We see a different angle of the battlefield, and I really feel like women can complement our male counterparts in such a beautiful way that we're not competing against each other, but we complement each other, and where we could finally shift the culture to all of us thinking that way, I think we'll see the military be even that much more greater of a powerhouse than they already are.
And since you said that, I also think that that will be a generational change, because I also think the military is a place where no matter your sex, no matter your race, it's supposed to be your ability. Is one of the few places where everybody is supposedly created equal. But in society, we all know it's not equal. But the military is the great equalizer in that regard, showing that everybody can work together and accomplish the mission. And Shellie, you look like you wanted to say something.
Oh, no, I'm just in agreement with everything that you're saying. It is the great equalizer. It does, I mean, we could talk forever about pay gaps and challenges in that way, but that's outside of the military. But it also can be an enabler. It's an equalizer, but it also is an enabler.
That's an interesting thought. You know, what you were saying too is that it doesn't matter what your sex is or what your race is or what level of education you have. When you are time and service, time and grade, that's what you get paid.
Yep.
But, you know, to do the job, to have it dress, I think that's where the Army really gets it right. Because I don't care what you look like, but if your pack looks like mine, and I know if I'm in danger, I can go to your right pocket and get out that tourniquet. You know, so that's like really, you know, dumbing it down and breaking it down to like very little. But if you know the same soldier who is in your rank and your structure has the same training you have, you know that you guys could go out and execute the mission. And I think they do that beautifully. Other things we have some working on to do, but that's really what it comes down to, is, you know, the person to your left and to your right is equipped just like you are to do the same.
And it sets standards that are, it really does, it standardizes the format. So, you know, when you're moving, that line moves together. So you know that you're walking, regardless of who you are, to what Kerri just said, you know that you can rely on that individual that's on your left and your right. You're not thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about race. You're not thinking about any of that. You're thinking about the fact that we're all in this together. And it does create a community of camaraderie and in support. And so knowing that regardless of whatever it is that you're going through, you have that left and right limit of support there for you in a way that I think it's interesting, because I always have to, you know, differentiate between, I can speak for the Army because I know what the Army does very, very well. And I don't seem to always hear all of those great things about other branches. I know that all branches serve and support well, but I love the way the Army, to Kerri's point, just gets it right as far as building community and camaraderie, and really finding the balance between how we you know, blend the lines and work together.
Well, you live and die by your team. Basically, it all comes down to teamwork.
So I think the vision for Freedom Sisters started back when I competed for Miss Veteran America, and in 2015, I stepped into an act of obedience in my faith to go and compete in that arena. And when I went back and competed, so that was my second time competing, I really did build a network, and I really did fall in love with my sisters of service. And not just, you know, the ones who were doing good, but all of them, every single one who served. It gave me a whole different perspective on that woman who has that selfless servant heart, who wants to do better, who wants to live better, who wants to live on purpose. And I really just fell in love with my sisters. And so fast forward 3 years later, there was a pause, or my time in the wilderness, and just really connecting to God and saying, you know, what do you have for me? Because in that 3 years, I became a mom again of 2 more children. I got remarried, and I left the Army. And I felt like I left my sisters, but I still had this yearning on my heart to serve them and to give them a place to speak and give them a voice. And so I went to bed on Valentine's Day of all days, like the day of love. So this is like an amazing gift of love. And I went to bed actually not full of love. I went to bed very sad and depressed and open-handed, open-hearted, like crying out to God, like, you called me to this. I know you called me to do something for my sisters. What is it? And I went to bed and just thought I'd sleep it off, you know, and feel better in the morning. Well, I woke up in the middle of the night to a voice telling me freedomsisters.com. And so I picked up my phone and I saw freedomsisters.com was available for purchase. And I didn't jump on it right away. I was a little taken aback that it was even available, because those are 2 very high. If you're anywhere in the SEO world or the SaaS world, you know that freedom and that sisters are a highly searched thing in Google. And so I sat on it for 4 months until my husband was like, I'll give you the money to buy the domain, you know, because I kept talking about it. And he's like, I'll just give you the money. Let's just do it. And so what it came to, I didn't know what it was going to manifest to be. And then I was like, okay, telling stories, and I love to talk to people, and I loved my time as a PAO. And so I was really listening to a lot of podcasts, and I was like, I could do that. I could talk to people. So I had to learn all the techie stuff, and I launched the podcast, where it's a place where sisters in service gather to talk about their hardships and victories and everything in between. We talk about faith, we talk about spiritual healing, but really it's to inspire and empower somebody listening, another sister that hears her story, to say, okay, she did this, I can do this, I'm not alone. And there's been such a beautiful, real healing in the sisterhood. I feel like there's an awakening to collaboration instead of the competition that we're so used to. And really just this place of showing up authentically for who you are and representing the diversity and the collective voice in a unified way. And so since then, we've gone on to develop some partnerships to do live events, and we're getting ready to launch a magazine, which is also a collaboration of all women contributors, and so women veteran contributors. And so I'm really excited about, you know, Shellie and I call it flex space, and that's from a preacher that we both love. And it's really a place where God is on the move, and I'm just answering, I'm saying yes, and I'm serving my sisters well. And that's really, I guess, it all in a nutshell.
Shellie, what would you like to add to that?
Wow. So mine's is kind of in the reverse. So, you know, when I transitioned out, when I retired in 2013, my husband and I retired 6 months apart. So he retired in 2012, myself for 2013. And we just had some decisions to make about what we wanted to do. But along the journey, what we found out is that, or what I realized about myself is that I never stopped. When I retired after serving my country for so long and then trying to figure out who I am and what I wanted to do, I just went from one career to another. I got hired, I was still on terminal leave, and I never stopped. I never stopped. And when I got hired, the water hose was on, and there were so many things rising up in me that I just did not know were there, because women serve and suppress at the same time. We don't get a chance to actually address our emotions while we're serving. We don't really get a chance to kind of check in. So along that journey, I realized while I was doing all of this professional outreach work and assisting other service members find new careers after service, I didn't get to do that really for myself. I can teach you how to negotiate. I can teach you how to sell. I can teach you how to do all of that. I never stopped to do any of that for me. And so along the way, I had some bumps in the road. I hit some walls and I didn't know who I was. I didn't love my body. I didn't love, I didn't understand all these challenges. And from all of this work that I was doing, that's where Redefining You Foundation was birthed. It was created specifically to address those challenges that women veterans face when we separate from service, because no one prepares us for the personal challenges. We're so busy finding careers. We're so busy trying to get you to the next big career opportunity to make six figures or whatever it is, help you start a business, but we're not necessarily focusing on the healing aspect of the things that you didn't get to actually deal with while you were serving. And you are a woman, so you don't get to identify with that. You're right, sex isn't in your gender isn't in the conversation, but when it's time for you to address gender beyond what your biology says that you have to address, you get to, who am I as a woman? I mean, I joined the Army at 18. I've lived my entire adult life through some major experiences that nobody else, unless they joined the military, has lived through like me. And I've, my trajectory to adulthood was fast and furious. You're around people that you normally, and in situations you normally wouldn't think you would be in, not living your life as an 18-year-old, right? So all of that, fast forward, having to figure out who she is when she retired from service and what she wanted to do. So I knew that if I was having breakdowns, if I was having challenges, if I was trying to address the things that were challenging to me and what was bubbling up and resonating with me, other women who were separating from service were going through that same thing. And I also incorporated military spouses in that, because sometimes you can be serving and then become the spouse and forget you served. Like you will completely desensitize yourself from that time and you won't think about it. Or even as a spouse, you're serving too. So you also left behind who you were to join in this fight alongside your service member. And now you're also transitioning out and leaving a whole culture and community. So that has happened, and we were, I started it, and like Kerri, it was interesting. I was on a flight and I had to come up with a name. I was working on a project, but God said that project wasn't for you to do for someone else. It was for you to do for yourself. I've been waiting on you to birth this, and now I'm going to force you to do it, because we couldn't get out of hosting the event. So while I was on a flight to DC, I came up with a name, Redefining Your Future, and the rest is history. I did it. And I started a business. I didn't look back. I told my husband, hey, I started a business. And then I turned it into a nonprofit for service. And that's really where it came from, identifying that if my story isn't mine alone. And then also fast forward, being able to connect with other women in the community and really being able to hear their stories and assist them through their own walk and challenges. That's that's what I found myself gifted at doing, and being able to help you have hard conversations with yourself, really being accountable for things that you need to really, activate and things that you need to do. And then here I am, fast forward, I meet this wonderful woman right here, and we connected on a spiritual level, and there was no tit for tat or quid pro quo for us. We just kind of merged together. She showed up for me, I've shown up for her, and then fast forward, here I am running and competing for Miss Veteran America 2020. And so this has just been a very interesting journey, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I know that was a lot.
So how did that change your life, and how did it make it better for other women veterans?
What it did for me was really bring a different perspective as well on women who served, and the different, Shellie calls it visuals, but just seeing the vast difference of each and every one. They're very individual, different women who are serving, but they all have the commonality of service, selfless service, or that call to service in their heart. And so it gave me just a different perspective. And then two, to learn, like really what catapulted me into competing was to learn that we were the fastest growing homeless population in our country, that the plight of women, there was no resources. They didn't even start counting homeless female veterans until 2010. And we had been serving for a lot longer than that. So the fact, that there was this just huge ramp up, and then when you merge culture and the lack of resources together, where now you have a ton of women who are single moms raising kids, and now they step out of that military service, so the gap pay is a real thing, and they can't make ends meet, and then they find themselves homeless. Well, you're also mothering, was just heartbreaking to me. I was a mom. Like I said, I had 3 kids when I competed, and you're caught in a rock and a hard place. And so I just didn't, it doesn't resonate with me well. Anybody who serves this country, it's a human issue. Homelessness is obviously a human issue in our country. And we need to really, if we can tell our stories and doing what we're doing and help people heal from the inside out and not just put Band-Aids on things, I think is where we're going to really see the shift. And again, that's a culture thing. That's a human thinking, mindset change. But that's really what I learned, and that's why I competed. And since then, I've just been really passionate about supporting women who are doing things. It may not look exactly the way that I would do it, but it's still important to support them and to encourage them and to help them. So that's just where my heart is on the whole issue. And that's where I am now with Freedom Sisters. It's like, I want to support and amplify women veterans in a way that we haven't seen before. Through our stories, no one can speak for us. We can only speak for ourselves.
So true.
Yes.
And Shellie, would you like to elaborate on that?
Man, so she hit on so many great points, Kerri did. For me, I could not have thought of another great way to continue advocating for women veterans. You don't realize, you usually think that you're in it by yourself. And so what I've realized on this journey that got me to this competition was that so many women who have served and who are still suffering and wandering really thought that they've been on this journey alone. And until you can really get a captivating audience in whatever way you can, to let them know that they are not in this alone, and that there is a support system, there is a way for you to have a better, thriving life. The more opportunities that I have to avail myself to unmute my voice and use that to advocate, to inform, to educate, this to me just made sense. It's another way, one, for me to learn about some more even deeper rooted issues that I thought I knew about, and I thought that I had a grasp on, but I've learned so much more through this journey. I've learned a lot about other women in this competition right now with me. We're all going through this moment. We're not in the same boat, but we're in the same storm. But we all have found a way to push the mission of Final Salute Inc. forward so that everyone understands that it's great that there's a lot of firsts. We want the first to become a norm. We want the world to acknowledge that we are an underrepresented demographic within a demographic. We are less than the 1% that serve. And our numbers deserve to be counted. And so I just could not think of a better way to be able to have a platform to really activate and galvanize voices. Also, what was really important and what's really happened to me is I've been able to birth other things, and so like, I really do know that my voice and the ability to create opportunities for others to speak is a part of my journey. And so being able to work hand in hand with other women and collaborate who are in service still after they've come out of boots, it just makes sense, and it's in alignment. It is a divine alignment and assignment. I know that I'm not competing in this competition by mistake, and if nothing else, I know that my voice is being heard and that there is a need out there for me to continue to have the crucial conversations and to inform the world for as much as I can about the great needs and the unique challenges that our women veterans face.